Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. I am so happy that you are with me today. So, this episode is going to be a little bit different than episodes that we've done in the past. If you have been with us on this Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life journey, the podcast is now in its fourth season. Yes, we have done over 150 episodes. As we begin our fourth season, we're going to be making a few changes. You will find me here a couple times a month in solo episodes. And once a month, Laurel will join me for a good conversation like we have traditionally done in the past. And then another episode each month, one of us, Laurel or I, will bring a guest to have a conversation with us for you. So this episode is my first solo episode, and I've got to tell you, I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be doing solo episodes. I mean, podcasting wasn't even on my bucket list or my business plan, but here we are. And I am so excited to be doing solo episodes. And I'm excited. Why? Because of you, because you are here with me, listening, engaging, giving me feedback, letting me know your own stories and experiences, reaching out and sharing. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So before we get into today's topic, I want to introduce myself. I am Laurel Boivin, co-host of Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. I'm also a life and leadership coach, and I work with individuals who are doing their own inner work. Laurel Holland, my co-host, is also a life coach. You can find our contact information and the links to our businesses in the show notes, just in case you want more information. So this episode, we're going to get into this conversation today, and our topic, self-acceptance. Now, the title of this episode, Loving All Your Parts, really, when we go into that and look at what the heck does that mean, we are talking about self-acceptance, loving all of your parts. And I've been thinking a lot about this. How does a person come into a place where they can love all of their parts? So let's start with first, what does self-acceptance mean? It is acknowledging all of your parts without judgment or fear, without criticism, just simply acknowledging. Last week, Laurel and I, last week's episode, we were talking about having the confidence to be yourself. And it occurs to me in this conversation about self-acceptance, there is a relationship, a very strong tie between having confidence, being confident to be yourself, and self-acceptance. Now, in order to be confident being yourself, you have to know yourself. You have to start to get to know yourself. And that is what acknowledgement is, right? Really looking at yourself, doing that self-reflection. That doesn't mean right away you have to accept everything about you, but you will get there as you continue to do this work. So when we have the confidence to show up fully as our authentic selves, as exactly who we are, that confidence comes from a self-awareness, a self-knowingness. And, it's a practice maybe, reminds me of when I was doing my yoga training and this practice of being an impartial observer without judgment, right? How can we just observe, simply let things be and acknowledge them as they are without judgment? So when I think about this for myself, I think my parts, I like to call them the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am a messy mix, a complex being, and so are you. So how can we show up fully if we don't accept all of our parts? You know, I want to just mention why this self acceptance is so important. Self acceptance, it's a key component of our personal growth and fulfillment. Often we may find ourselves, or I should say sometimes, not fulfilled, without fulfillment, or unfulfilled in our life. And we look externally. But perhaps the secret is looking internally. Can you find more fulfillment externally when you have a stronger awareness and acceptance of your own pieces and parts? Self-acceptance is also, it's crucial. It's a critical piece of achieving our full potential. You know, I have clients, and I have been known to do this myself, where or think this or feel this. The feeling of, I know I'm meant for more. I know there must be more. Often I look at that as a clue that I am not living into my full potential, that I am not achieving or being my full potential. So that self-acceptance helps realize and live into your full potential. How do we know if we have inner work to do around self-acceptance and loving all of our parts? One of the things I want to suggest is that you do an inventory. Consider your characteristics, your habits, your tendencies, your behaviors. Which are the ones you're proud of? And which of the ones are you ashamed of? So what is it, these habits, tendencies, behaviors that you hide? Do you hide them? Are you hiding parts of yourself? That is how you know, or you begin to know, if there's inner work to do around self-acceptance. That's how I knew. There are a few other clues I want to share with you. Looking for external validation or approval, negative self-talk and self-criticism, pretending to share the opinions, beliefs of the people that you're around, choosing to go along to get along, being a chameleon, avoiding conflict or uncomfortableness or pain. When we try to avoid conflict, pain, uncomfortableness, discomfort, that is a clue that we are hiding parts of ourselves. And then the last one I want to share with you is one from my own personal experience: being exhausted, being tired of pretending. So I did all of those things at one time or another. Not that long ago, it probably was in the last, I don't know, I don't remember if it was 12 years, 10 years, a while ago. It was when I was working in my corporate job. I had a conversation with my husband that was a major shift in my self-awareness and my self-acceptance. It was a light bulb moment. And it caused me to know I had inner work to do. So we were having a conversation, and I couldn't tell you what the topic of conversation was, but he was reacting to something that he just learned about me in that moment. Now, we had been together for 20 plus years. So imagine my reaction to his surprise at something about me. I said to him, one day you're going to read my obituary and you're going to be really surprised. And he looked at me and asked, why? What are you hiding from me? And out of my mouth, in that moment, without thinking, I said these words: nothing. I'm not hiding from myself. Yeah, there you have it. That is the moment that I knew I had inner work to do, that I was hiding big parts of myself. I was pretending to be what other people needed and wanted me to be. So that began my work. Fast forward now. Well, before I tell you the most recent update on that story, I want to tell you it came to me. I realized in doing my inner work that I was hiding parts of myself that I judged, that I criticized, and I was afraid other people would judge and criticize them too. It was a survival strategy for me at some point. It kept me safe, but I had outgrown that strategy and I was exhausted. I was tired of pretending. I really wanted to be myself. I wanted to openly share and express my thoughts, my opinions, my emotions, my dreams and desires, like I did when I was a much younger woman. So fast forward in the last 6 months at some point, my husband and I again were having a conversation. Now, this conversation, we were having a disagreement and it wasn't going well. We ended the conversation without compromise. I thought about that conversation afterwards and I acknowledged, I admitted I could have handled that better. I was not coming into that conversation as my best self. So the next day, I approached the topic, not the topic of discussion or debate or disagreement, but the topic of how I handled the conversation. And I told him, I'm sorry, I could have handled that conversation better. And he hugged me, put his arms around me, patted me on the back, and said, It's okay, honey. I know you're not yourself when you act like that. Imagine my surprise. Okay. I separated my body from his. I pushed back and I said, No, that's where you're wrong. She is me. That is part of me. It's just a part of me that I don't often let come out. It's a part of me that I hide. It felt really, really good to not only acknowledge that part, but stand up to defend that part of me, because even my messiest parts are still part of me. So I hope that you too have had these moments of realizing when you're hiding. And I hope that you have found some courage and confidence to let people know that that is part of you, that piece that you've been hiding. Here's what I've learned about loving all of my parts. And I want to share with you so that you too can love all of your parts. It is an act of courage. It is a bold, brave move. It increases our self-trust and our self-compassion, and we can trust others more and be more compassionate and forgiving with others. It really is. It starts with us. Building self-trust and self-confidence and self-acceptance helps us to have trust and acceptance of in others. Really looking at and accepting all of your parts, it helps you, it helped me to overcome fear of judgment and that core fear of abandonment, that fear that we're not going to fit in or we're not going to be accepted. When we own all of our parts and we accept all of our parts, that fear becomes very small. And it helps us to regulate our nervous system, because when we reduce the fear and we begin to feel safe being who we are, our nervous system is no longer on high alert. We are not perceiving things as a threat. We don't get stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. So if you're ready to make peace with all of your parts, here are a few things to help you get started. Self-reflection. Self-reflection is so wonderful. If you can come into a self-reflection practice, um, really begin to look at yourself with loving kindness, right? In a gentleness. Look at your behaviors, your tendencies, your habits, again, which are the ones that you are ashamed of? Which are you proud of? Which do you hide? That self-reflection. Create safe spaces for you to practice being yourself. Who are the people that give you a sense of safety, that really love you unconditionally, and you are not afraid of them judging you? Spend more time with those people. Look at your self-talk. Do you have an inner critic? How do you talk to yourself? Right? Is criticism and judgment of yourself part of your daily routine? Just begin to notice that. And then, who is your inner critic? One of my favorite practices, and I do this with clients, is to personify your inner critic, right? Give her or him or them a personality, a name, a wardrobe, a brand, right? What are their hobbies and habits and all of those things? Because the more you can see your inner critic as separate being, separate from yourself, you can invite them in and dismiss them. You can tell them you don't need them right now. Then the other part of your personifying yourself, your inner critic, is is creating an inner mentor. Because when you have an inner mentor who is a wise guide, someone with wisdom and experience who can guide you through what you're working on, rather than criticizing you for what you need to work on, that inner mentor is someone you can look to in order to minimize the stage time, if you will, for the inner critic. Journaling is another practice that really helps when you are ready to start making peace with your parts. Journaling is a practice of writing. It removes the energy of what you're holding in your body, the emotion that you're holding in your body, and it brings it outside of your body. Now, some people might be afraid to journal because we don't want our thoughts and emotions on paper, or in written word for other people to see. But I can tell you, you can get rid of it after it's on paper if you choose. You can burn it. I love to call this practice rage writing, right? Bringing big emotion to the paper and then getting rid of the paper. You can delete it if you are typing in a digital format. This journal exercise or practice doesn't have to be a practice that is documentation forever and then some. It's up to you. And then mirror work. If if you ever have practiced mirror work, it doesn't come easy to us. But it is a practice of looking at yourself in the mirror and speaking to yourself by first name, speaking to yourself with kindness, acceptance, acknowledgement, right? Gratitude. And the more that you do this, the more it strengthens the belief in who you are, and it shifts your self-concept. Developing a forgiveness practice. It can be used for yourself or others in your forgiveness. One of my favorites is the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer or prayer of forgiveness. I believe it's called Ho'oponopono. And I'll put the name and maybe a link in the show notes because it's a very powerful practice to forgive yourself for being who you once were and maybe hiding those parts of you. It might be a practice of forgiveness of the shaming and shunning that you've done to yourself in the past. And then my last, but not least, is give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace, knowing that hiding parts of yourself was a survival strategy that you put in place in the past. It probably worked for you. You needed it at the time, but you have outgrown it. You no longer need that as a survival strategy. You are safe. Take a moment and acknowledge your former self, a younger version of yourself, someone who had different skills and different survival strategies. Bless and release. Now just look at yourself and who you are today. What do you want today? And know that it is time for you to develop a new strategy. You have a whole new skill set than you did previously, and it's time to use those skills to do things differently. So that is what I have to share with you today. I really hope this episode gives you courage to not only look at all of your parts, to acknowledge all of your parts, to accept all of your parts, and to love all of your parts. It really is a beautiful becomingness to be able to be comfortable and confident, showing up fully as your whole self. If you need help as you begin to unearth the parts of yourself that you've hidden, or make peace, or develop new strategies, please know that Laurel and I are here to help you. You can reach out to us. Again, our contact information is in the show notes. And I hope you'll be back next week. Next week is going to be our first guest episode of the new season. John Hand will be with me, and we're going to be talking about mending what's broken, which will give you some more guidance and insight into loving all of your parts and showing up fully. Thanks again for being with me today. I really couldn't do this without you. Bye for now.